So people come in and they look at these things and they say, that's crazy.
It's crazy. Fun.
So one of my first and most vivid memories when we opened the shop is the day Steve blew in the door with baby Jane on the back of the bike. And parked it and went about his business, and she just sat on the bike, and every now and again, how's it going, Jane? I'm not even sure she was fully vocal at that point.
Probably not.
Yeah.
No, she was on the back of the bike. We figure it was around, she was born in October, and probably April or May, she was strapped in that little yup seat on the back of the bike.
Right.
And I remember him telling me that he came down here with her and just pulled the bike right into the shop.
Yeah, it was great. We were like, this is kind of what we wanted.
Oh, good, because he just kind of does it.
Well, and with Elon, I might say. So that's good.
He sure does, yeah.
So, and I see you riding with Jane.
This time of year, not
so
quite
much.
as much.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, that's how I get most of my miles for training for rides and things like that. I just ride that particular bike with Jane on the back, coaching me now, and
Is that right?
helping with turn signals, which is nice. It's nice to have be a little bit more visible with somebody
Right.
else flailing around on the back of the bike.
So, all right, so you road bike, you've got a fat bike, you commute.
Yes.
You're ringing all the bells.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We do have, we don't park the cars in the garage because the bikes are parked.
Our situation is like
Preaching to the choir.
Right,
Yeah,
well,
so,
you're preaching to the guy who kind of gets the stink eye because the cars aren't in the garage.
well, it's only a few days that
Right.
it really is like, man, we have too many bikes. Why can't we park the cars in the garage?
Right, that'd be great.
Yeah, but it's nice to have them ready to go when the weather breaks and you can hop out there. I was just watching a video from a couple years ago with Jane. We had the fat bike out on our street, and I was pulling her around on a sled, and she was having a blast, and so was I, even though I was pulling her weight.
Right.
So yeah, it's nice getting out when you can.
It is nice getting out when you can. So you ride across Iowa every year.
Just about every year. I might be taking a break this year. I haven't quite decided. I've gone I went a couple years before Jane was born, and then have gone pretty much every year since Jane was born. And excuse me, it's just it's an absolute ride. Thousands and thousands of riders together, going from point A to point B every night. You're camping in a field of 1,000 tents. Sometimes our team has is tucked away a little bit more, but it's a Mardi Gras on wheels. It really is just, you see triples, you see families of 5 on a single bike, with a trailer bike with a trailer. You see unicyclists. There are even rollerbladers and runners who do the whole ride across Iowa.
Wow.
Oh yeah, and people in costumes, usually toward the beginning of the week, and then.
So it sounds like less of a race.
It's not a race. You just go from point A to point B. If you race, you miss all the fun. You miss what all the towns have to offer. All these little towns have bid to have the ride come through. And it's such a huge economic impact on these tiny little towns. I've known of these tiny little towns being able to build a community library or put in a community pool or, really invest in their town because RAGBRAI came through. And people spent their lunch money, spent their adult beverage money in that town. The overnight towns do even better because, people are there for a couple of meals and for nighttime entertainment too. So I try to take my time. I like to get in between the towns, get some good speed going, and I like bounding up the hills. Excuse me. But when we get to a town, I like to kind of embrace the town too. Steve taught me that. My first year going, I thought, we've got to get all the way there, get our tent set up, and
Chop.
Yeah, I just didn't really know to embrace it like that. And he slowed me down, and you stop and you smell the roses and you meet all the nice people. You go and talk to the people sitting on their porches, waving at you as you go by. It's a big event for them to see all of us coming through, and might as well spend some time with them.
That sounds pretty deluxe. So how much do you train for something like this? I mean, I would think for somebody, if I were going to tell, my wife, hey, we're going to go right across Iowa.
Right.
Her first thing was, how am I going to get ready for this?
It's recommended to get at least 500 miles on your bike seat. Mm-hmm. It's not about spinning your legs as much as getting your bottom ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know I get more than that. I don't really keep track of my miles. I just know when my legs are ready to get perhaps an 85-mile day. Mm-hmm. There may be a day that when you have to ride 80-some miles, or maybe a day when you're doing 40-some miles. Typically, it's closer to 70 miles. So if you can do a ride within a reasonable amount of time of that length, then you're in pretty good shape. RAGBRAI does have a training program for people who are starting out, and they will coach you along as well.
I see. So like an online thing. On
yeah,
their
there
site,
is.
all that kind of thing. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Now that I've done it so many times, I just know what I need to get done. I always try to get to Cal Tour toward the end of my training and get the bigger miles in that way, or just go out and do my own big rides. But most of my miles are with a kid on the back of my bike. Now she rides a little bit. It does. The bike I ride most of the time probably is about 100 pounds with everything on it. The big old cargo bike.
Right.
And that's good training, I think. So it gets me into shape quickly.
So one of the things that we're talking about this summer is we're actually talking about bicycling as fun, as something anybody can do. So one of the things I'm asking everybody is I'd like you to think about a time, like a memorable time you had when you were riding your bike.
Oh gosh, there's so many memorable times, but I guess the highlights mostly for me are our family rides. So when Steve and Jane and I are just riding out to the farm or riding out to the nature center, and we're taking routes through town that open my eyes to things I haven't seen, even though I've grown up in this town.
Right.
You just get off the beaten path, partly because worried a little bit about traffic,
right,
but because it's easier too. I think those adventures for me are the best, is when the three of us are riding together, just doing some exploring and then getting our errands done, and just using the bikes to the fullest. A lot of good quality outdoor family time.
Well, it puts you right in it, right? I think the experiences are pretty intense at times.
Yeah. Every Saturday morning we'll hop on the bikes and go to the farmer's market. And sometimes the ride's easy, sometimes it's not. It depends on the traffic. And Jane is now riding her own bike. She can ride. She's been riding up Oakland Hill now, I think, for a couple of years. She's able to power up the hill.
Well, when she's ready to try to drag Olive up the hill,
she would do it.
I did that once. I don't think the dog and neither of us really cared for it.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
The dog likes the back seat of the car just fine.
Yeah.
That's good for her.
That's all she needs.
So, well, you're out commuting and stuff like that. How do you feel over time? So you've been doing this for a while now. What's the traffic situation like in Kalamazoo?
Well, traffic situation is getting better, I think. We did feel the pocket of safety growing around us last season, I should say. So we did feel that people were giving us the space like they should be. But we have big, noticeable bikes. So I feel for the people who don't have the big noticeable bikes like we have,
right,
or have the bright lights like we do, or a flailing child on the back. Ours are kind of a novelty.
Right.
So, I want to keep educating people on what the rules are and what the etiquette is, and keeping everybody safe and not getting angry about keeping somebody safe.
I don't know. I just find that whole conversation super interesting.
It's getting better, I think.
I think it's getting better too, but I think it's getting better, but it's getting better in the face of society kind of getting worse, right? We don't often think about we're in this together.
Right. There's a lot of impatience. There are a lot of things that people just like to quickly get angry about. And I'm just not willing to go there,
Well, I'm embarrassed when I find myself there. Why? Why am I yelling at this person?
Yeah.
Inside my cage, right? I'm yelling at this person.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Or, when I can tell on my mirror that someone is approaching me too closely, I'll give the hand signal. I'm not using the grown-up hand signals to let them know that I'm not happy with their approach, but
I don't think the grown-up hand signal really solves a lot of problems.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And I don't want to teach my passenger any of that.
Right.
But she kind of knows sometimes if I can tell in my mirror that somebody might be approaching closely, she'll flail too a little bit and kind of push her hands out to the side. So it's,
Yeah.
we've just got to constantly be aware. There's such an awareness that we have to have as the cyclists and the walkers and the runners, and
I think, what is it? Vulnerable roadway users.
We are the vulnerable ones, yes.
Right.
I heard of someone teaching their children a game in the car. We play a game in the car where if you see a moving yellow car, we say score, and that person gets a point. But teaching children to spot people on bikes and saying something like score. That just teaches our younger citizens to be aware of bikes. You just have a heightened awareness of cyclists by playing a game like that. So I thought I should start that with her, and maybe even try to get a double score if you see somebody on a bike without a light or a bright light, because we need to be even more aware of them. They're harder to see. They're more rare, maybe.
Hopefully more rare.
Yeah.
But definitely harder to see.
Yeah, I just want it to be safe for her to ride her bike to school at some point, and for other people to be able to use the roadways and the walkways safely. I know I don't do everything right all the time, but I'm really trying to signal every time, and even when I'm driving, just trying to be aware of my turns and looking at sidewalks before I turn.
Tell me about riding a fat bike. How has that been? I remember when you bought yours, and I've seen you out on the trail with it, and you're an experienced cyclist. So people come in and they look at these things and they say, "That's crazy."
It's crazy fun. It's crazy fun. I I had a mountain bike, a crappy mountain bike to start when I first met Steve, and he handed down a really nice full suspension mountain bike to me, and I rode that for years. And then I just wasn't riding on the trail as much. So I got rid of that bike and got the fat bike. And that has been game changing. I will now go up to ride at Yankee, and I find that when I ride at Yankee, my language is much cleaner because I can ride across the sand with a more solid line.
Right.
I rode there just a handful of times, and I was so frustrated with how to ride it. I'm pretty athletic. I've got good balance, but I just couldn't do a lot of that very well, and the sand just would anger me. Just roll right over that with the old fat bike. It's so much fun.